Before we start, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. Also, can you please tell me where and what time you're watching? Thanks. I wasn't supposed to be in Fernley, Nevada. Not really. Definitely not that far west, and definitely not in February. But I'd stopped tracking the shoulds in my life somewhere around mid-December, when I finally accepted the truth that my startup was dead in the water and no amount of pivoting, pitching, or positive thinking could bring it back. By January, my apartment lease in Seattle was up. I sold what I could, boxed the rest, and watched my fiancée, Erin, take her last look at me through the rearview mirror of an Uber. That was the last time I saw her in person. I didn't make a plan. I just drove. Rented a compact Hyundai, packed some clothes, my laptop, a backup hard drive with some resumes, and hit the road. I wasn't running toward anything. I just needed to put miles between myself and everything I'd failed at. Nevada was never on the agenda. But when you stop sleeping more than 3 hours at a stretch, and your days start blending into each other, you don't really care where the map leads. You just want a place to land for a night. Just enough structure to convince yourself you're still in control of something. It was just past 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. The highway signs had thinned out and my phone was down to 3%. I pulled off at exit 48 outside Fernley, figuring I'd grab some gas and a snack, maybe a motel if I could find one without roaches or bullet holes. That's when I saw it. Family Dollar, lit up like a museum exhibit, sitting in a half-empty strip mall beside what looked like an abandoned pet grooming place and a tax prep office with paper over the windows. There was something too quiet about it, the way the lights buzzed just a bit too loudly, the way the wind carried fine dust across the parking lot like it had been doing it forever, uninterrupted. I remember thinking, this place feels staged, like someone pressed pause on time and forgot to hit play again. I parked anyway. Inside, the air smelled like floor cleaner and something sweet but artificial, maybe cheap dryer sheets. The place was cleaner than any Family Dollar I'd ever been in. Too clean. Floors buffed, shelves full but too organized. Nothing out of place. No chatter, no music, just the sound of the HVAC system humming steadily overhead. There was only one employee, a kid, maybe early 20s with a shaved head and pale skin. He stood at the register, didn't say hello, didn't even look at me when I came in. I roamed the aisles slowly, almost pretending I had a real shopping list. Grabbed some beef jerky, a knockoff energy drink, and a phone charger. I felt like I should have left right then, but my instincts were buried under exhaustion and hunger. I told myself I was just paranoid. Burnout will do that. I went up to the counter. The kid scanned my things silently. When he handed me the bag, our fingers touched for half a second, and I swear, I mean this with no exaggeration, his skin was ice cold. Not cool, cold. He looked up once then, and I noticed something strange. His eyes were red around the edges like he hadn't slept in days, but there was no weariness in them, just this distant, unreadable focus. "Have a good night," I said, more out of habit than anything. He didn't respond. I stepped outside and immediately realized I'd forgotten to buy a USB cord to plug into the charger. I turned around, and the glass doors clicked shut behind me. I reached for the handle. Locked. I blinked, tapped it. Nothing. The store had gone completely dark, and in the reflection, behind my own shape, I saw something move inside the aisle. Not the cashier, something else. Something taller, motionless, watching. I took 2 steps back and turned. That's when I saw the Durango. An older model, navy blue with fogged-out windows. It was idling now, parked directly beside my rental car. It hadn't been there when I pulled in. And then from inside the Family Dollar I heard the softest sound. A series of taps. 4 of them. Tap, tap, pause, tap. Measured, intentional. I stood there frozen in the middle of that empty parking lot. The wind kicked up again, scraping grit across the pavement. The neon sign above the store buzzed once, flickered, then steadied. Then came the knock on my window. 4 taps, same rhythm. I turned slowly. The passenger window on my car was fogged, but there was something pressed against it, something pale and still. A hand. Human, or at least it looked human. I didn't hesitate after that. I sprinted to the driver's side, yanked open the door, and jumped in. I didn't even check the back seat. I started the engine and reversed hard out of the space, the tires skidding slightly on the dust-covered pavement. But the Durango didn't move. I looked in the rearview mirror. It was empty now. I swear to God it had been running seconds ago. I saw the exhaust, heard it. Now it just sat there, still and cold, like it had been abandoned for weeks. I drove straight out of the lot and turned onto the main road, heading back toward the highway. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. About a mile out, the dash on my rental started glitching. First the fuel gauge, then the Bluetooth display, then the entire console blinked off for 3 full seconds before rebooting. My headlights flickered. Once, twice, and then the engine died. Just cut out. I coasted to a stop on the shoulder, breathing hard, hands gripping the wheel like it could protect me from whatever was out there. My phone? Dead. I got out, popped the hood, like I had any idea what I was doing. I stood there for a second, completely alone on that desert stretch of road, when I saw it again, headlights in the distance, coming toward me. But slowly. Too slowly. Not like a driver passing by. More like someone taking their time. Watching. I slammed the hood, ran to the passenger side and rummaged through the glove box. Nothing useful. Not even a flashlight. I looked back again. The lights were gone. Just desert and darkness again. But something inside me had changed. I wasn't tired anymore. I wasn't even scared. Not in the way you are when you watch a horror movie. This was different. This was clarity. Cold, precise fear. The kind that speaks in absolutes. You're not safe. You weren't supposed to stop here. I walked. Not back toward the Family Dollar, not toward the lights. Just into the darkness. Following the road, hoping for a sign, a gas station, a trucker, a miracle. After 20 minutes, I saw a diner sign ahead. Dim, but real. A truck was parked out front. A man stood outside smoking, looking up at the stars. I practically collapsed in front of him, told him everything in fragments. He listened, then said something I'll never forget. That Family Dollar? It burned down last month. Electrical fire. Whole block still without power. I turned to look back down the road. The stretch I'd just come from. Empty. Pitch black. No building, no lights. Nothing but desert and silence. Weeks later, I still don't know what I walked into. The police didn't find a receipt. My rental car was found exactly where I left it, but it started just fine when the mechanic checked it. No error codes, no drained battery. But I don't sleep like I used to. I keep the lights on. I don't trust automatic doors. I don't trust stores that feel too quiet, too clean. Because sometimes it's not just about bad luck. Sometimes it's about being chosen. And I still don't know what chose me. If a place that shouldn't exist opens its doors to you, do you go in, or do you trust your fear and walk away? My name's Lucas Marin. I'm 29, born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona. And for most of my adult life, I thought I understood how life worked. Go to school, get a job, build something stable. Maybe you don't love every day, but at least you don't have to look over your shoulder. For a while I had that. I worked back-end IT at a mid-sized startup, paid rent on time, cooked dinner with my girlfriend Ava most nights. We talked about maybe getting a dog, trading in my Civic for something newer. I had health insurance, a 401k, the illusion of a future. Then in February, it started to unravel. First, the company folded, completely blindsided us. One week we were planning an office expansion. The next week I was getting a mass email telling me to check with HR for separation paperwork. HR didn't even respond. Half the staff laid off in a day. 3 days later, my badge stopped working. And then, bit by bit, Ava started to check out. I don't blame her, not really. I was depressed, tired, drifting. I watched job applications go unanswered, my savings drain, the future shrink down to nothing. She stuck it out for a little while, but her tone changed. She said I wasn't the same person anymore. Maybe I wasn't. She moved out the second week of April, left her key on the kitchen counter, didn't even take her coffee mug. I remember thinking the silence was louder than her yelling would have been, so I packed what I could into the trunk of my car, 2 duffel bags of clothes, my computer tower, a few framed photos, a shoebox of stuff Ava didn't want to keep. My friend Mark lived in Austin and said he had a couch I could crash on. He even mentioned a possible gig at the content agency he worked for. I figured, screw it. Starting over is still better than standing still. I left before sunrise and made it nearly 13 hours before stopping. Somewhere just past Sierra Blanca, I pulled into a motel called Desert Lantern Lodge. That night, that's something I still have trouble talking about. But it's what came after that kept me up most nights. The kind of fear that follows you into daylight, that wears a name tag and clocks in right beside you. The Family Dollar on North Lamar didn't seem like the kind of place bad things happened. It was just a job. Simple, low stakes. I stocked shelves, mopped spills, locked up. The store closed at 11 and most nights were uneventful. Just me and Brandy, the assistant manager. She had a kid in daycare and a no-bullshit attitude that I kind of respected. She didn't ask questions when I applied. I think she saw the desperation in my eyes. That Sunday night in late April, we were just about to start closing duties. Brandy was finishing up till counts behind the plexiglass, and I was rearranging batteries in aisle 6 when the front chime buzzed. A guy walked in, hoodie pulled low, face half in shadow, looked like he'd been on foot, no car out front. He carried a beat-up cardboard box and said he wanted to return a fan. I remember the box, filthy, duct-taped around the edges. It didn't even match the model of fans we carried. I told him we couldn't take it back without a receipt or at least a barcode. He didn't argue, didn't get mad, just smiled like he knew something I didn't. Said, "It's already been paid for." Before I could respond, Brandy came out from the back and asked what was going on. When I turned to look at her, and then back to the man, he was gone. Like, gone. The door hadn't chimed again. He didn't walk out. Brandy thought I was messing with her, said maybe I needed a break. That would have been the end of it. Weird moment, shrugged off. But later that night, when I was sweeping aisle 6 again, I found a receipt on the floor, folded neatly, printed from our register, time-stamped from earlier that shift. But the receipt didn't list any items, just my name at the top. My full name. And underneath it, where the subtotal should be, it read, "You never left room 6. This is just what came next." I thought maybe Brandy was pulling some weird prank, but when I showed it to her, her face changed. She said she didn't know how it got there. Said she didn't even see anyone print a receipt at all that night. And she wasn't the type to joke around. The next night I came in early, trying to clear my head. I double-checked every aisle. Nothing strange. But when I went into the break room, I found a Polaroid on top of my lunch bag. No note. Just a photo of my car, the Civic, parked in front of Desert Lantern Lodge. Same motel. Same angle I remembered from the night I stayed there. But no one had taken that photo. Not that I knew of. I never posted it online. Never sent it to anyone. I looked out toward the lot, but there was no one standing there. Just the traffic rolling by, humming, indifferent. When I checked the security feed later, I noticed something worse. The break room camera had glitched for a full minute before I entered. Static, then nothing. That week, things got worse. Every shift, I'd find little signs. The aisle numbers rearranged, the power blinking in the back corner of the store. Random items, things we hadn't stocked in months, showing up on the shelves in pristine condition. An old white box fan that hadn't been sold since winter sat right where the guy had tried to return one. I checked inventory. It didn't exist in the system. I stopped sleeping well. I started showing up to work early just to walk the aisles alone, hoping to prove to myself that I was imagining it. But the evidence kept stacking up. Receipts I hadn't printed, notes in the return bin with lines like, "He's still inside the walls." And one time, I swear I heard whispering near the mop sink, even though the store was empty and locked. Brandy started keeping her pepper spray on her belt. She said something felt off, but she didn't push it. I think she knew I was already close to the edge. One night she mentioned the place used to be a pharmacy decades ago, back before it was a Family Dollar. Said an old security guard had gone missing during a storm in the 90s. They found his flashlight still on in aisle 6, but not him. I thought she was screwing with me until I looked it up myself. The last night I worked there, it all came to a head. I stayed late to retape inventory tags after a system update. Brandy had left early. Her son had a fever. I was alone. The store was locked. I had my headphones in, trying to drown out my nerves, when the emergency exit alarm beeped once, then again, then stopped. I pulled out my headphones, heart racing. Silence. I made my way toward the back door, passing by aisle 6. There he was. Same guy, same hoodie, same cardboard box. But this time he wasn't smiling. He held out the receipt again, just like before. But now there was something written on the back. "Check your locker." He left the key. I backed away, but he didn't move. He didn't follow. I ran to the break room, fumbled with the locker dial, yanked it open. Inside wasn't my lunch bag, just an old motel matchbook, Desert Lantern Lodge. And beneath it, a single room key labeled 6. I quit the next morning. Didn't give notice. Didn't look back. I told Mark I'd find freelance work. Picked up a remote contract writing product descriptions for a furniture catalog. It pays like garbage, but at least I don't have to leave the apartment. I live on the 2nd floor. The stairwell light stays on all night. There's a security camera pointed straight at my door. Still, sometimes I get receipts under my welcome mat. No items, just my name. Sometimes a room number. Sometimes the words, "He's almost through." I think about going back sometimes, just to see if aisle 6 is still quiet, just to see if the fan is still there. But I never do, because every time I think maybe it's over, I hear a knock on the door that doesn't match the rhythm of my neighbors. And I remember something the guy at the motel said calmly, like it was fact. "It's already been paid for." So let me ask you something. If a stranger handed you a receipt with your name on it, no purchases, no explanation, just your name, would you take it? Or would you ask who printed it? And what if no one ever did? Long before that night, I'd already started feeling like I was disappearing. It wasn't sudden, not a dramatic collapse, but a slow erosion. I was 24, living in a borrowed apartment above a tire shop, folding into a routine I hadn't planned for. My name's Riley Madsen, and I used to believe things like instinct were for animals or crime victims in true crime podcasts. That changed the night I closed the Family Dollar on Horizon Ridge Parkway by myself, and came within inches of something I still don't fully understand. I hadn't meant to stay in Henderson this long. My dad died unexpectedly the summer after my 3rd year at ASU, and everything just sort of slid. Tuition bills piled up, my lease fell apart, and the only option left was moving into my Aunt Colleen's place while she stayed with her boyfriend in Phoenix. I told myself it was temporary. Get a job, save a little, maybe re-enroll next spring. That was the plan, but time has a way of sticking when nothing's pulling you forward. Family Dollar was supposed to be filler, a late-night job that gave me the days to get my head on straight. My manager, Lainey, was a sharp-tongued chain smoker who kept her cigarettes in a knockoff Coach purse and called everyone Han without ever sounding affectionate. But she was fair. I worked 6 evenings a week, mostly solo by closing time. I liked the rhythm of it, the way certain customers always came at the same hour, the hum of the cooler fans, the smell of cardboard and cheap detergent. Still, some nights were off. You get to know a space when you're alone in it long enough. I could tell when something was out of place, when the broom was leaning the wrong way, or the shelf labels had been shifted ever so slightly. The backroom buzzer had started chiming at odd times, usually with no one on the other side. Lainey said it was faulty wiring. I didn't argue. But there were moments, usually just past 10:30, when I'd glance out at the lot and catch a car idling in the shadows too long. Once I swore I saw someone just standing there near the dumpsters, not moving, not smoking, just still. That Friday started normal. Hot day, sharp blue sky, slow foot traffic. I had a Red Bull and a granola bar during my 10-minute break. Checked in our inventory shipment, 6 crates, mostly junk. My closing partner called in sick. Stomach flu, Lainey said over the phone, then sighed. You okay flying solo? I told her yeah, even though I wasn't sure. I had done it before, just not lately. Not since things started feeling watched. Around 10:46 p.m., I locked the front doors and started the routine. Wipe the counters, take out trash, count the drawer. Then the buzzer rang. Not the doorbell, not the register, the backroom buzzer. The one that should only go off if someone's at the employee entrance. I stepped into the hallway and checked the camera feed. The screen was grainy and delayed, but clear enough. No one at the door. Just the empty rear loading area and the dumpster to the right. Still, my skin prickled. I locked the hallway door behind me and returned to the counter. Maybe I was just tired. At 10:58, someone knocked at the front. A man in a red hoodie stood on the other side of the glass, squinting against the reflection. Hood up, hands in pockets. I hesitated before unlocking. That night air had cooled fast, and something about the way he shifted from foot to foot made my stomach tighten, but I opened the door. Sorry, he said, stepping inside. Didn't realize you were closed. We're technically still open, I told him, my voice steady. Just starting closing tasks. He nodded, eyes scanning the shelves. Car trouble, parked out by the dry cleaner next door. My buddy's on his way, but I left my phone. Figured I'd grab a flashlight, maybe some duct tape. I watched him move. Slowly, deliberately, like he was in no rush to leave. The front lights buzzed above him, flickering once. I swallowed. We've got some flashlights in aisle 4, tapes on the end cap near hardware. He moved that way, dragging his feet a little. I kept my eyes on the monitor. That's when I saw it. Camera 2, rear lot view. A figure crouched by the side door. Low. Still. Holding something long and thin. Metal, maybe. The hoodie guy was just a distraction. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Hey, I called down the aisle. You said your friend's out back? He paused. Didn't answer right away. Nah, he finally said. Just me. He's on the way. His voice was too casual, too quick. I didn't respond. My right hand moved under the counter, fingers curling around the panic button. It didn't beep, didn't click, just a dead silence, same as always. I hoped it worked. I stepped back. I'll check on that flashlight for you, I said. He gave me a smile. Small, tight. Appreciate it. I walked to the storage hallway, locked the door behind me, and grabbed the aluminum bat we kept next to the mop sink. I stared at the monitor, watching the man in the hoodie slowly approach the counter again, hands in his pockets. Outside, the crouched figure vanished from the screen. I froze. Then I saw it. Camera 3. Side door. The guy was moving again fast toward the back employee entrance, the one I'd just locked seconds earlier. He reached it, pulled the handle. Nothing. Locked. He stood there a moment like he wasn't sure what to do, then turned and ran. The hoodie guy inside moved for the exit too. Didn't speak. Didn't even look at me. He slipped through the door and vanished into the night. The police arrived 12 minutes later. They swept the perimeter. Took my statement. I told them everything I could. Deputy Barnett jotted notes like he'd heard it all before. Looks like they were working together, he said. Not their first time either. You did the right thing. Any way to ID them? He shook his head. No plates, no facial recognition, probably just passing through, looking for opportunity. That word made me sick. Opportunity. Like I was a moment away from becoming someone's payday. The footage showed everything. One distracts, one breaks in. Clean, practiced, near silent. If I hadn't locked that door when I did. The next few shifts were uneventful. I started bringing pepper spray and keeping the lights brighter. I double-checked locks, stopped stepping out after dark. Every time someone lingered too long by the snack aisle or asked too many questions, I felt my spine tighten. 3 nights later, a woman and her daughter banged on the glass at 11:30 p.m. Their car had stalled. The girl was crying. Rain streaked their faces. I hesitated. My hand hovered over the lock. For half a second, I didn't move. But then I saw the kid's face, red and puffy, clutching a soaked teddy bear. I opened the door. She looked at me like I'd taken too long. I made them hot chocolate in the break room microwave, wrapped the girl in a towel. The mom cried once, softly, thanking me over and over. I just nodded. That was the moment I realized how fear could make you cruel. That hesitation might be what saves you, but sometimes it costs someone else. 2 weeks later, a man checked in with a stack of dollar bills and a voice that didn't match his smile. Said his name was Craig. Said he used to manage a Family Dollar in Tucson. He asked if I worked here alone. Asked what time we usually close. Small talk, nothing too strange, except he kept glancing at the side hallway like he was mapping it. I lied and said my coworker was in the back unloading a truck. I rang him up and watched him leave. He didn't buy anything. That night I stayed past my shift, just watching the cameras. Nothing happened. But I didn't stop checking. I quit the following Monday. I didn't give notice. Just handed Lainey my badge and said I needed to go. She didn't ask why. Maybe she knew. She'd worked that store long enough to sense when someone had seen too much. Now I work at a car rental place near the airport, day shifts only. I carry a pocket knife on my keychain. I never park near alleys, and I never ignore that twinge in my gut. Because what I learned in that fluorescent lit store on Horizon Ridge is that evil doesn't come in with fangs and fire. Sometimes it wears a smile. It asks for help. It leans on your instinct to be kind. And it waits for you to forget to lock the door. The scariest part of that night wasn't what happened. It was what almost did. What's the cost of ignoring your instincts when someone asks for help, but something deep down tells you not to open the door? Long before I ever set foot in Charleston, I used to think that danger wore a mask, something obvious, something you'd recognize by the chill it sent through your spine. But that's not how it works. Not always. Sometimes danger sounds like a friendly voice in the wrong place. Sometimes it looks like kindness that comes too easily. I left Dayton because I had to. I'd filed a complaint, HR, police, all the channels they tell you to trust. The man I reported had tenure, friends, and the kind of smile that people believed over mine. Inconsistent narrative, they said. Lack of corroborating evidence. What that really meant was, he had power, and you didn't. After that, I was the girl who cried wolf. The girl who made things uncomfortable. My lease got yanked on a technicality. Friends stopped replying to texts. I stopped replying to myself. The truth is, when something bad happens and the people around you don't believe it, it doesn't just hurt, it erases you. You stop trusting your memory, your voice, your instincts. You shrink. I packed everything that fit into my Civic, and I left Dayton like a ghost escaping its own house. At first, I told myself I was just taking a trip, a break, a few days to clear my head. But with every hour I drove, it felt more like fleeing. I spent nights in truck stops, diners, once behind a boarded-up thrift store with my coat over the window and pepper spray clutched in my hand. I didn't sleep so much as fade in and out of panic. By the time I got to Charleston, West Virginia, I was out of options. My account balance had 2 digits. I hadn't eaten in a day and a half. I pulled into a parking lot on McCorkle Avenue because the red family dollar sign was lit and I saw the big "Now Hiring" sign taped inside the window. I went in hoping I could fill out an application, maybe use the bathroom. I didn't expect Reggie. Reggie was the store manager, middle-aged, built like a refrigerator, walked with a slight limp. His name tag was scratched and smeared from years of wear, and he carried a ring of keys that clinked like shackles. He didn't ask many questions, looked at my ID, asked if I could lift boxes and work closing shift, and then pointed at the back. "You start tonight if you want." I said yes so fast I sounded desperate, because I was. The job was simple. Stock shelves, clean floors, take out trash. After 9 p.m., when the doors locked, it was just me and the buzz of the soda coolers. That suited me fine. I didn't want people. I didn't want conversation. I wanted quiet routine and time to figure out what came next. The store was run down. The left fluorescent light in aisle 3 flickered like a dying star. The supply closet always smelled like bleach and wet cardboard. Some nights the register drawer jammed and Reggie would curse until his voice got hoarse. But it was a job, and it didn't ask anything of me besides showing up. It took me 3 weeks to start noticing the man. Thursdays, always Thursdays, around 8:40 p.m. He'd stroll in like he had time to waste. Tall, maybe 6'1", gray hoodie, dark jeans, worn sneakers. He never bought anything, just wandered through candy, pet supplies, sometimes hovered near the coolers like he was pretending to make a choice. But his eyes, they were always scanning. Not the shelves, the mirrors. At first I thought he might just be another lonely guy. But there was something too intentional about it. Too slow. Too present. His gait had a rhythm to it, as if he'd walked these aisles before, like he knew where the blind spots were. He didn't speak until the 4th visit. I was restocking toilet paper in aisle 6, crouched down in the narrow strip of space near the end cap. My back was to him. I heard his shoes before his voice. "They always leave you here alone?" His voice was casual, measured, but close. I didn't look up. "Store's closing soon?" No reply. When I glanced toward the front doors, he was already halfway out. The next day, I mentioned him to Reggie. "You get weirdos," he said unfazed. "It's Family Dollar, just keep the pepper spray on you." He wasn't wrong. Most stores like this attracted oddballs. But something about this guy, it wasn't just his presence. It was his pattern. Same time, same day, same eyes. Then the woman showed up. It was a Thursday again, 10 minutes to close. She was tall, blonde, and dressed like she'd just walked out of a medical office. Sharp blazer, tailored pants, heels too clean for this street. She browsed the shampoo aisle before walking straight toward me while I was folding cardboard in the front. "You work here full-time?" she asked, all warmth. I nodded. "Yeah." "You're good at it. You have this calm about you, that's rare." I didn't respond. I didn't want to encourage it. She smiled wider. "I run a women's resource group over in Huntington. Trauma support, job placement, healing retreats. I talk to a lot of women in these positions. You'd be surprised how many just need someone to say, 'You deserve better.'" I felt a cold pinch in my stomach. She leaned in a little. "If you ever want to talk, I could grab you a coffee. I'll be around for a few days." "I'm okay," I said, forcing my tone flat. Then she said it. Quiet. Almost too quiet. "You're not what I expected." Her eyes stayed on mine for half a second too long. Then she turned and walked away. Something inside me locked down. Later that night, I waited until I was alone and slipped into the dusty back office. The security monitors were old, grainy black and white feeds, one for each corner of the store. I rewound the footage. There it was, the man arriving first, parking near the dumpsters. 5 minutes later, she pulls in. Same SUV, different entrances. They didn't acknowledge each other on camera, but the timing was too clean, too rehearsed. At 9:03, just after we locked the doors, the feed to the back hallway froze. For 6 seconds, nothing. Then it came back. A figure at the emergency door, trying the handle. Once, twice. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I hid, crawled into the janitor's closet and locked it from the inside. Texted Reggie. Someone tried the back door. Please come now. 7 minutes. That's all it took. His truck's headlights flooded the lot. I peeked out in time to see the SUV peeling out, tires screeching on the cracked pavement. Reggie was pale when he saw the footage. He called the police. They took statements, checked the tapes, said similar reports had come in from other towns. Always a man and a woman. Always night shifts. Always targeting women alone. I never went back. I stayed at a women's shelter 2 towns over. I slept with a chair jammed under the doorknob. I kept the pepper spray next to my pillow. It's been 3 months. I still don't go anywhere on Thursdays. I still hear her voice. You're not what I expected. And I wonder, what happens to the women who are what they expected? I had a habit of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I guess it started in childhood, watching my mother swallow her feelings behind polite smiles, folding laundry like it might fold away the silence in our house. I carried that into adulthood like a sickness I never named. That's how I ended up staying with Scott as long as I did. Not because I didn't know he was lying to me, but because I didn't want to make a mess. And when the truth finally came out, that he'd been cheating for months, that his phone wasn't dead on those nights he never came home, I didn't yell. I didn't throw a single plate. I just woke up one morning, grabbed my keys, and left. The road south felt like something between a breakdown and a cleanse. I drove without music, just the low hum of the tires and my own thoughts chasing each other in circles. I stayed off highways, stuck to the back roads where Spanish moss dripped from the trees and old houses peeked out from behind rusting fences. I didn't know where I was going until I hit the outskirts of Tallahassee and pulled into the parking lot of a cheap motel with a faded sign that read, Sunset Pines. It was almost charming in the way abandoned things sometimes are. The room was musty but clean enough. I dropped my bag, sat on the bed, and stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazily overhead. It was the first time I'd stopped moving in almost 9 hours, and the stillness made my skin itch. Around 8:45 p.m., I realized I hadn't eaten all day. There was a Family Dollar a few blocks down, still lit up, with a few cars in the lot. I figured I could grab something, crackers, maybe a microwave meal, and avoid the awkwardness of sitting alone at a restaurant. It wasn't about fear, not then, just exhaustion and not wanting to be noticed. When I walked in, the store was nearly empty. A woman in scrubs was at the register, her basket full of paper towels and toilet paper. The cashier, a guy in his 20s with sandy blonde hair and sleepy eyes, gave me a nod. His name tag read, Darren. He looked up from scanning and said, "Cold night to be out." I smiled politely, muttered something about passing through, and ducked into the food aisle. I wasn't planning to stay long. But something about the place. It's quiet. The way the overhead lights buzzed just slightly, the warmth compared to the night outside, slowed me down. I wandered longer than I meant to, letting my eyes slide over cans of soup, instant noodles, half-empty shelves of holiday candy. I hadn't realized how tense I'd been until my shoulders started to unknot. When I made it back to the front with a frozen dinner and a travel-sized bottle of wine, the woman was gone. It was just me and Darren now. He didn't say much as he rang up my things, but when he handed me the bag, he smiled a little wider. "You staying local?" I hesitated. "Just a night, passing through." He nodded slowly. "Well, we're here till 10. You need anything else? You come back." It was the way he said "we," like there was someone else working, even though the store had been dead silent since the other customer left. But I didn't question it. I said thanks and pushed through the heavy front doors. I didn't see anyone else on my way back to the motel. The streets were dark and quiet, except for a stray cat darting under a porch. My room was exactly how I left it, and for a few hours, I managed to feel okay. But when I woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom, I saw it. Tucked under my windshield wiper, a note, written in narrow block letters. Glad you made it safe. My stomach turned. I hadn't told anyone where I was staying. Not the name of the motel, not even the street. And yet someone knew. I told myself maybe someone just saw me walk that direction, maybe it was nothing, but I couldn't sleep after that. I pulled the curtain aside and sat in the dark for hours watching the parking lot. Nothing moved. Still, something felt wrong, like I wasn't alone. The next night I told myself I was just being paranoid. That's what people always say, isn't it? I went back to Family Dollar, part of me hoping I'd see Darren again, ask if he left the note, confront him maybe. Just get it out in the open. The store was almost empty again. Darren was behind the counter, but this time he looked different, more alert, like he'd been waiting for something. "You came back," he said, voice low. "Yeah," I replied, placing a bottle of water and some aspirin on the counter. "Couldn't sleep." He smiled again. "Funny, I thought about you last night." I stiffened. He saw it. "Don't worry," he said. "Didn't mean anything weird. You just looked kind of sad." I nodded, forced a smile. "Yeah, well, long week." As he bagged my things, he leaned forward slightly. "You know, I've got a break in 10 minutes. If you want to hang back, talk a bit." I felt my chest tighten. I managed a polite, "Maybe another time." He didn't look offended, just watched me as I walked out. I could feel his eyes on my back the entire way. This time, I checked my car before getting in. No notes, no one in sight. But I drove around the block twice before heading back, just in case. The note came again the next night. This time it was taped to my door. "You don't have to be alone." I didn't go back to the store. I packed my bag, threw it in the car, and sat behind the wheel for 15 minutes trying to figure out what to do. The police? What could I say? That a cashier maybe left me a couple of notes? I hadn't seen him do anything. I hadn't even seen a camera in the lot. I decided I'd leave at dawn, get back on the highway, put some real distance between me and whatever was happening. But around 3:30 a.m. I heard knocking. Not loud, just soft taps. 3 of them. Then silence. I didn't move, just stared at the door, breath caught in my throat. Another 3 taps. A pause. Then the doorknob rattled. That broke the trance. I grabbed my keys, wallet, and ran. No shoes, no jacket. Just bare feet on cold pavement. I didn't look back until I was in the car with the doors locked and the engine running. Someone was standing at the corner of the building, just beyond the light, not moving, just watching. I drove. I didn't stop until I hit I-10. I didn't go home right away. I stayed with a friend outside Mobile, someone I hadn't seen in years. I told her some version of the story, edited, safer, less alarming. A few days later, I called the Family Dollar store. A woman answered. I asked for Darren. She paused. "There's no one here by that name," she said. I hung up. I checked the receipts I'd kept in my bag. No name listed, just cashier 087. I looked up the store on Google Street View. In the most recent photo, someone was standing just inside the glass door. I swear it was him. Even blurry, even distorted by the reflection, I recognized that face. I never found out who he really was, or how he knew where I was staying. I don't think I want to know. But sometimes I wonder if he's still there, waiting for someone else to walk in just before closing. Maybe someone who won't leave when the door's locked behind them. And maybe next time, he won't wait so long to knock. If someone made you feel truly seen, but only after watching you without your consent, would you still call it loneliness, or something far darker? It's strange how quiet the world gets when your life falls apart. I don't mean the kind of silence you get in a library or when you're alone in the woods. I mean that hollow, static silence that follows a moment of total collapse, like the world has paused, unsure what to do with you now. The day I found myself in Dumas, Arkansas, it had been raining off and on for hours. My phone buzzed every now and then with messages I didn't have the heart to read, mostly automated payment reminders or final notices. I hadn't seen my dog in 6 weeks, hadn't been inside a real home in 2 months. I'd been sleeping in my car, chasing Wi-Fi from parking lots, hoping each day might land me a gig that paid enough to get me back on my feet. But every opportunity seemed just out of reach, like chasing headlights on a foggy road. By the time I rolled into town, my gas tank was barely hanging on. I pulled into a Family Dollar on South Main Street with just enough change to maybe buy a microwave burrito or a can of soup. The rain was steady, light but constant, like the sky couldn't be bothered to pour. I remember that detail because when I stepped inside the store, the warmth hit me in a way that made my throat tighten. Fluorescent lights, that dusty citrus cleaner smell, shelves half-stocked and oddly comforting. And behind the register was a woman, maybe 24, blue hoodie, high ponytail, eyes that didn't flinch when they saw me soaking wet and worn thin. "You okay?" she asked. Not like a stranger asking out of politeness, but like someone who's seen enough wreckage to recognize it. "I'm fine," I lied. My voice cracked halfway through the word. She didn't press, just nodded toward the food aisle. "Got stuff marked down in the cooler, if you're hungry." I wandered for a while, picking up items I couldn't afford and putting them back again. The place was nearly empty, a couple of kids near the toys, an older man talking to himself in the seasonal aisle. I lingered near the back, pretending to read ingredients, really just staying dry. I knew they'd kick me out once the clock hit 9, but no one did. The girl behind the counter, Miranda I'd learn later, waited until the customers cleared out, and then walked toward me with a mop in one hand, and a look on her face I couldn't read. "You local?" "No," I said, "just passing through." She nodded like she already knew that. Then, as casually as if she were offering me a coupon, she said, "My uncle helps people sometimes, when they're in a rough spot." I didn't say anything. "He's in the back, stockroom, if you want to talk to him." Everything in me bristled. I didn't trust offers that came too easy, but I also hadn't eaten in 2 days, hadn't slept dry in even longer, and the thought of not being in that damn car for a night felt like mercy. "Just to talk," I said. She smiled faintly, like I'd passed some kind of test. I followed her to the back hallway, past the employee bathroom and break room with its buzzing fridge. A door was already half open. Inside was a man in his 60s, black slacks, maroon sweater, glasses that caught the light just wrong. He didn't smile, just motioned to the folding chair across from him. "Eric, right?" he asked. I froze. "How'd you—" "Miranda," he said, as if that explained everything. I sat. He watched me like I was a photo he was trying to memorize. Then he said, "I've got a cot, back room, out of the rain, some food, and a little something for the road if you want it." I looked around. Shelves of sealed boxes, unsold Halloween stuff, water damage creeping up the corners of the room. Not much of an offer. But it was dry, it was warm, and I was tired. "What's the catch?" "No catch," he said, too quickly. I should have left then, should have thanked them and walked right back into the rain. But I didn't. That night the cot smelled faintly of bleach and mildew. A plastic tub near my feet had a pack of granola bars and a bottle of water. I ate them slowly, like it made it less desperate. I heard the store doors lock from the outside, and I told myself that was normal. I told myself this was just kindness. Until midnight came and went. I opened my eyes and saw the man, Glenn, through the break room window, standing perfectly still, watching, not moving, not blinking, just watching. I turned away and tried to breathe quietly. It was nothing, just me being paranoid. But I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning my duffel bag had been moved. Nothing missing, not that I could tell, but it had been unzipped. The journal I kept folded in my hoodie. Pages were dog-eared, the pen inside missing. I found the pen later, snapped in half under the cot. I went to confront Miranda. She stood behind the register as if she'd never moved. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "People take what they think you won't miss," she said. I stood there, waiting for her to say more. She didn't. Later that day, Glenn appeared again. This time, he didn't offer a cot. He handed me an envelope. Inside, $300. "No strings?" I asked. "Most people say no the first night," he replied. "Doesn't mean they stick to it." I tried to hand it back. He didn't take it. Just tapped the envelope and walked off. I stayed that night, stupidly. Thought maybe I was imagining it all. I set up my own alarm, kept my bag under my arm while I slept. Just before 2 a.m., I heard the door creak. Not swing open, just creak. And then it stopped. I waited until daylight and made my move. Cot dragged to block the door. I shoved open a side hatch I'd noticed the day before. Emergency delivery access. It wasn't locked, just latched. I slipped out into the back lot, sneakers soaked from the mud, air cold and heavy. I didn't run until I heard footsteps behind me. Slow ones, measured, like someone taking their time. I ducked through a narrow alley, crossed a backyard, banged on the side door of a house with lights on. A woman peeked out through the curtain and I begged her through the glass to call the police. She hesitated. Who wouldn't? I looked like hell. But she did. By the time the cops came, Glenn was gone. No one at the store admitted he worked there. They said Miranda had worked alone. The break room, empty, no cot, no supplies, no record of anything. I didn't argue. I just left. Weeks later, I stayed in a cheap motel 2 counties north. I checked the Family Dollar's reviews out of morbid curiosity. Nothing unusual, all standard. But one review I found through a cache showed up from someone named Theo. "Don't stay. Don't say yes. Some offers are harder to walk away from the second night." I never saw that review again. Now, even in daylight, when I pass a Family Dollar, I cross the street. I never accept free help. Never eat food I didn't open. I sleep in my car, yes. But I keep the doors locked. A crowbar in the passenger seat. And every time I close my eyes, I see that man's silhouette at midnight, staring through the glass like I belong to him. So now I ask you, if someone offers you comfort when the world's kicked you to the curb, how do you know it's mercy and not a leash in disguise?